And last but not least, we will also join by Dr. Sipa Chantawong from Laos. He is the lecturer and program director from Faculty of Law, National University of Laos. So Dr. Sipa also teaches environmental law, and his major focus is on applying legal measures to solve environmental issues such as water, land, pesticide use, among others. So is Chris with us now? Yes, okay. Welcome, Chris. Then without further ado, I give the place and the time for Chris. It will be around 50 minutes and I will remind you when it comes short. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the discussion.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for the introduction, but also for the invitation to come and participate in this discussion. I was telling colleagues before that I arrived in Bangkok August, September last year when everything was still locked down. So this is, I can still count on two hands the number of face-to-face meetings I've been able to participate in. Look, we're here to talk about the state of law and policy in the Mekong region. But I wanted to start my intervention by just taking a little bit of a step back and sort of talking a little bit about how this issue has been addressed in legal and policy frameworks at the global and regional levels before narrowing down to our part of the world in particular. And I'll start my intervention by reiterating something that was said in the first session, actually, which is that the links between migration, environment, and climate change have received significant amounts of attention and interest in the past decade, in the last few years in particular. And this is especially true within the global policy discourse, with growing awareness on the part of governments that they need to not only develop laws, policies, and frameworks to address the links between migration and climate change, but also to identify and implement practical programs and interventions to assist and protect people who move in the context of climate impacts. Now, this growing interest, I think, has been aided in part by the fact that the climate migration nexus sort of sits at, I mean, it's a nexus, right? So it sits at the crossroads of a number of different policy fields. And this has meant that there are multiple avenues through which the issue can and indeed has been addressed at the sort of global policy level. Now, clearly the central discussions when it comes to climate change are in the UNFCCC process and the annual COP meetings associated with that. And in that context, we've seen quite a bit of advances in terms of the extent to which climate migration is addressed in that context. You know, ranging from the 2010 Cancun Adaptation Framework, which was sort of the first time that this issue was addressed within the UNFCCC process, through to the establishment of a task force on displacement under the Warsaw International Mechanism on Loss and Damage, which was an outcome of the Paris Climate Agreement. And even as recently as COP27, which of course concluded this past week, where migration, displacement, and planned relocation has been identified as issues that need to be taken into account in the further elaboration of the loss and damage fund that governments have just agreed to. And these advances have been quite significant and quite important for this issue globally. But of course, the UNFCCC process is not the only place where this issue has been addressed. It's also integrated in the multilateral processes related to disaster risk reduction, in particular in the context of the Sendai framework and its follow-up and review processes. It's also incorporated in several aspects related to sustainable development. For example, the Samoa pathway, which is an international framework focused on the sustainable development of small island developing states. That framework also recognizes the need to assist and provide protection to people who are displaced by disasters. And it's also part of the migration track as well, through the New York Declaration, but most recently, the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration, which was also referred to earlier. Now, the GCM includes quite a substantial number of commitments and recommendations on addressing the drivers of human mobility, including climate and environmental factors. And these are just some of the formal UN processes that have addressed this issue as well. But there are many others outside of the UN context, like the Global Forum on Migration and Development, the Nansen Initiative, which is now the platform for disaster displacement, amongst others. And at the regional level too, we see that several bodies have taken action to address the links between migration, environment, and climate change. But the extent of action varies quite considerably from region to region. Now, IOM and the PDD, the Platform for Disaster Displacement, collaborated on a baseline mapping of policy and legal instruments as a contribution to the follow-up and review of the Global Compact for Migration, which collated 140 regional instruments and over 930 national policy and legal instruments from 171 countries. And it also undertook some more in-depth review in 21 countries. Now, a few of the points that were identified in this mapping included that most of the instruments that were identified came from places other than Asia, so primarily the Americas and Africa. However, the highest number of instruments that deal specifically with issues around climate mobility did in fact come from the Asia Pacific region. Now, the review also noted that policy development has focused more on addressing drivers in terms of looking at, for example, climate change, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction, rather than having any sort of specific focus on human mobility as such. And it also found that the regional priorities tend to set the tone for policy development. So in the Asia Pacific region, for example, overseas employment, seasonal labor migration, migration and remittances, as well as planned relocation tended to be sort of the main focus areas of the instruments identified, as distinct from sort of a more specific focus on climate change related issues. Now, while this gives us a sense that there's been some level of policy action, several other analyses have pointed out that within Asia, broadly speaking, climate mobility is not as well addressed in regional policy making. Including, for example, in the ASEAN context. And this is notwithstanding the fact, of course, that this region frequently tops the list in terms of regions most vulnerable to climate and disaster impacts, as well as the fact that it's also the region that is most impacted by disaster displacement of any region globally, which I think someone else mentioned earlier as well. Now, there has been quite a lot of progress, it has to be said, in terms of developing political declarations and interministerial dialogues on disaster risk reduction, disaster management and humanitarian assistance, especially in ASEAN and through the Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. But progress on broader issues around climate change and human mobility has not advanced as well. And I was interested to hear earlier on in the previous sessions about the sort of the sense that people have that in this region the issue is not as well advanced, and that's certainly also the sense that I get as well from looking at different pieces of information. And this is in an overall context as well in which different UN reports have also raised concerns about the level of commitment and ambition in the Asia Pacific region, specifically around climate change action, including the commitments that governments have made as part of their nationally determined contributions under the Paris Climate Agreement. A recent study, for example, noted that out of a total of 156 countries that submitted revised or updated NDCs in the period 2020 to 2022, only 61 or 39% included some reference to human mobility, whether that's in the context of migration, displacement, or planned relocation. And of those, only 3 were from the Asia Pacific region, and only 1 included sort of more tangible, specific related to climate migration. And that country was Vietnam, by the way. So, you know, while this is only one metric by which we can assess the level of action in this area, I think it's quite telling and perhaps speaks to the broader lack of ambition on climate action that other analyses have also highlighted. Now, another piece of sort of anecdotal evidence on this, I would say, is the extent to which governments in the region have made pronouncements on the issue in the global and regional multilateral fora that they are part of. And on that score, we again see that governments in the region haven't been as active on or vocal on the issue of climate migration. And so some informal analysis that we've been doing in IOM's regional office here, for example, where we've been trying to track government statements in different fora, shows that despite being quite active in different processes, governments in Southeast Asia have highlighted climate migration only 13% of the time when they make interventions. This is based on the different statements that we've collected. In contrast, countries in the Pacific, they intervene less frequently, but they highlight these issues up to 60% of the time when they make interventions in these international fora. So, and in addition to that, most of the interventions from Southeast Asia come from the Philippines and Indonesia, while the Mekong countries are less vocal overall and less likely to highlight climate migration. Cambodia and Vietnam might be the exceptions to this, but for the most part, we either don't really have a record of countries sort of coming out and speaking forcefully on this topic, or where they are making interventions, they don't really highlight the issue at all. Now, as I say, this is all sort of largely anecdotal, but it is suggestive as well, I think, that there may be an issue here in terms of the extent to which human mobility, especially linked to slow onset processes, is addressed in climate laws and policies. Now, if we look at things from the national level more specifically, we also see similarly mixed results. For example, in a country assessment that IOM conducted in Cambodia, we similarly found that the significant advancement of climate mobility issues at the global level had not been translated into relevant laws or policies being developed or put in place in Cambodia itself. And although issues related to environmental degradation, climate change, migration, and so on are certainly part of the policy land and legal landscape in that country, some of which are cross-cutting laws and frameworks, others are sort of more specifically focused on particular thematic issues. There's been little discussion on the relationship between all of these factors from a more holistic perspective. In Vietnam, on the other hand, the government there has adopted numerous national policies related to climate change, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction. And their issues around relocation have featured quite predominantly in some of the policy frameworks. So we see sort of different dimensions of human mobility being addressed. But again, the broader dimensions beyond planned relocation to look at displacement or labor migration and so on aren't necessarily taken into account. Just to wrap up quickly, as to the reason why this issue perhaps isn't much attention, our study from Cambodia pointed to several potential factors, many of which have been discussed already throughout the previous sessions. But one is, of course, the lack of robust evidence, and linked to that, the definitional issues around the meaning of environmental migrant and so on. Another was a lack of primary data on migration flows within and outside countries in the region, as well as a limited multidisciplinary approach in research and policy development, disaster risk management, and climate change adaptation. And similarly, the limited coordination in policy formulation across sectors. So many of the issues that we've highlighted already seem to be factors that could potentially inhibit that sort of further policy development and advancement at the regional level. So this is an issue that is certainly worthy of further attention, I would say, and it's an area that is a priority for IOM, including from my role in the regional office, where a focus on Southeast Asia is definitely a high priority. So we'd be more than happy to talk with any of the other partners and colleagues in the room about how we could sort of take forward further research on this topic. But I'll leave it there. I think I'm over time, but so thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so Chris has touched upon the climate migration, climate mobility, and this big gap in countries in our region in Southeast Asia. Of course, if you have question, please keep it, and then we can have a Q&A session after all the panelists. The next speaker, Phu Ngoc Binh from Vietnam. Please.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and can you start? Okay, that is my presentation. So you see two pictures, two photos. One is ASEAN, the other one is a Greater Mekong region. So Greater Mekong region, Vietnam, the sub-region is a part of both. Among the country, the five country among the 10 countries in ASEAN, and the other one is one of the 5 of the 6. 6 here means China, Yunnan from China. So next. Yes, my presentation will deal with the context, country of migration, environmental protection, and national disasters, and gender human rights in general, COVID-19, and commitment from the region, law and policy, and national program of action, and state actors and non-state actors. Yes, please. Okay, these are the 10 countries. So the 5 out of the 10 are our sub-region. We call sub-region. That is, in Vietnamese, we call the Little Mekong region. So that is half of the ASEAN, half of the next piece. I talk fast. Yeah, next. Yes. So that is the sub-Mekong region. So you see the 6 flags. One of them is the China. That is the Yunnan from China. Yes, next. That is the great picture, bigger picture. So that is Greater Mekong region. So our region is a part of it, plus Yunnan province in China. Next. Yeah. So first about Mekong River from China. Actually, from China, the end is Mekong Delta, Vietnam. Yeah. The importance of the Mekong region, Mekong River. Next. Yeah, it is our region, MSR. Yeah, yes. So part of Southeast Asia is mainland. The other one is maritime. So our region is mainland with Laos, locked area. And then also among the 5 countries, 3 are considered as the least developed countries: Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. The other 2, Vietnam and Thailand, are considered as more developed in terms of economic development. Next. So in this country, Vietnam, in terms of population, is the biggest one, almost 100 million. Laos, I think it's 6 million is smallest among the 5 countries. And all the 5 countries have the same feature, that is market economy, towards market economy, and also trying to have a rule of laws and also have a civil society with different levels of development. So Laos, Vietnam is a bit slower and with different. Next. Yes. So except Thailand, all the countries are dominated by the colonialists in the past. So Myanmar by the British, the Indo-Chinese country, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia by the French. So we have the colonial history. And of course, we also see the growing influence of social development. Academic institutions, you see all professors, lecturers, researchers, practitioners are here from the countries, the 5 countries. In the past, no one. But now more people, more lecturers and more researchers and more women movement, more women groups, more NGOs, more civil society coming up in recent years. However, one feature for the whole region is that we don't have any kind of sub-regional mechanism on human rights. So it is the only ASEAN country, but not the 5 countries, the sub-region our area. Next, please. The same feature of all 5 country governance issue, rule of law, corruption problem, economic crisis, climate change, national disaster, internal conflict also, either more in the past, now less in the at present, migration. Also the keys of the main features of the region, more emerging old issue, but more emerging issues coming up. Next. All the 5 countries, advancing, market economy, market-based economy, higher economic growth. Of course, you see also Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, especially Thailand. Thailand is the top one. Vietnam is trying to catch up with Thailand. Laos and Cambodia are a bit less, and then Myanmar is, of course, because of the political situation. So a lot of pressure on land use and land rights. So that is more, you see, more development, more destruction, more violation of human rights. I think more deforestation, dam construction, mining, and other natural resources extraction, and also contributing to the environmental damage. So that is a common issue, common feature of all the 5 countries. And next. So more climate change and more environmental issues. Economic issue, you see, all the 5 countries are trying to have a more FTA, more involvement, more economic development, part of the ASEAN, etc. So all the 5 countries as a part of ASEAN, trying to have a more development, more economic development. Next, please. And if you look at the number of FTA, you see, Vietnam is not the top one, but trying to have the top one, and Thailand is the top one. But now Cambodia also trying, difficult for Myanmar because of political situation. So, but more development, of course, more destruction, more environmental issues, more problems in the country. I talk more later. But you also see the influence of the superpower in the region. So see China and the United States trying to influence, trying to compete. Next. More migration from the country. You see, out of the 5 countries, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar are the sending countries. Thailand is receiving country, but at the same time, Thailand also sending country to other more developed countries. So more migration, more labor migration from the 4 countries to Thailand and other countries in the region. Next. You see the push factor and the pull factors. More migration, more mobility, more problem also for the region. So it is complicated and difficult. So that even Thailand has signed a series of MOU with the other 4 countries in the region, Burma, or Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, to just regulate the channel of labor migration from those 4 countries to Thailand. So it means a serious issue. You see more labor migrant from those 4 countries to Thailand. You see also more Vietnamese working on the street vendors and migrant domestic workers in Bangkok, in other provinces. Next. More climate change also, not only worldwide, but also I think our region is among the worst of sub-region, among the worst. And so that's why donor countries are trying to come in, and organizations trying to come to help. So involving for the development of economic development transformation and to help the problem. Next, please. That's the same problem, same common problem in all the 5 countries. Flooding everywhere. In Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, in our country, flooding is so common. After the rain, it's the whole city flooded. And typhoons, extended droughts, heat waves, cold fronts, sea level rise, and satellite water intrusion and Wi-Fi very common in the whole 5 countries. No exception. All the 5 countries. Next. So you see some photos, flooding everywhere, very common in Vietnam. I think also in Laos and Cambodia as well, and Myanmar, and also in Bangkok, in other part of Thailand as well. So the same problem in all the region, all part of the region. Next. Even yes, you see interesting. I don't think that maybe the same in another country in the region. You see the funeral in water, the funeral in water, and you see also the wedding party also in water, bullet in water. You see people are sitting, drinking, eating in water, surrounded by water. Funeral, no place for burial, so just carry, and you don't know where to go with the the coffin, and the Wi-Fi, the fire is so common, and drugs so common in all the 5 countries, especially Vietnam. So Vietnam is no exception, but more common in Vietnam nowadays. Next. So who are the sufferers? Of course, we have a certain group of population: older person, people with disabilities, children, women, ethnic minorities, indigenous population, etc. Urban poor, for example, in all the 5 countries, no exception. Yes. Next. Yeah, those are the victims of climate change and disasters. That's next. Yes, next, please. You see the photos illustrating what I say, and also migrants, landless people without resources, vulnerable to climate change, affected by the construction, by the displacement, and who cause all this? Is the government agencies, of course, ministries, and also companies. Yeah. Next, please. And donors are coming in, World Bank and UN agency, bilateral donors, NGOs, also many are coming in. Sometimes we have a feeling that competition among them, among the 5 countries, and local NGOs. So many, of course, most of them work on climate change nowadays, climate change, environmental protection. So Vietnam, for example, so many networks, so many groups, and of course we see more investors coming in from donors, from developed countries. Come next, please. So we see the big donor for the region: United States, of course, Japan, South Korea, and more also work more on now climate change, environmental protection. Russia, EU, India, Australia also coming in. Next. Okay, that is commitment on human rights. So please, next. You see all these commitment from all the 5 countries, all the conventions, soft law, hard law, all the 5 country commitment from the government. But we have to see how the commitment have been put into action, not only words, empty words, but also actions. Next, please. Yes. So these are the commitment from the 5 countries. Human rights. Yes. Human rights commitment. Very good on paper. So very good paper. However, I must state that if you look at the declaration, the paper, etc., from the government of the 5 countries, they are not race-based, not gender-sensitive. That is a key point I like to raise. Strong commitment, but if you look at the program action, laws and policy, nothing. Even Vietnam also very little about human rights, gender. Next, please. Yes, so these are the convention ratified, and you see also the next charter. You see the list of table. You see the commitment. The next please. You see also here. So these are the country. Commit very strong commitment. All the 5 countries. Myanmar is much less. Myanmar is much less, but you see more CRC, CEDAW, ICCPR, ICSCR also about climate change and environmental protection, also all strong CEDAW, CRC, etc. Next. Yes. Also soft law, all of them have been signed by the 5 countries. Accepted. Oh, no exception. Strong commitment. Soft law. Next, please. Yes. SDG, of course, all the 5 countries committed to, to achieve SDG. Yeah. Including, prevention and of climate change and disasters. So next. So what to do after the SDG? Of course, what to do for the government? Yes, is to take more action. Yes, so you see the wedding party, feeding water again, very common in south of Vietnam in the Mekong Delta. Floods, always come up, and even in wedding seasons, you see preparation for the wedding party. Next, please. Yes, commitment also. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's so. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Kamana, thank you very much. So in relatively quite rapid, but it's very clear that you shared the overview of this political economy overview in the region. Also, you talk about multilateralism, and I'm very interested when you call it the hard law and soft law, because I agree with you. The soft law, there is no commitment, So you spend money to meet, but in the end, nothing being done, right? Thank you very much. Then the next, I would like to invite Dr. Sipa Chantawong from Laos.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to present my paper about the state of law, policy, and research in the Mekong region on the slow onset environmental change, mobility, and human rights case of Lao PDR. So the next slide, please. The outline of my presentation start from the state of law and policy in Lao PDR, which I mentioned about the law and the regulation that's relevant to the environment, and then environment to change in the Lao PDR, following by the displacement and natural disaster and the climate mitigation technology, and the last point about the extent of environmental change, recognition and addressing in Lao PDR law. So start from the environmental and policy regarding to the resettlement in Lao PDR. Normally, Lao PDR, we have more than 160 law nowadays. But the law that's relevant to the resettlement, let's say, or displacement is at 4 of this, but not limited to 4. But the main one is a 4. The start from the environmental protection law in 2013, and following by the law on resettlement and vacation in 2018, decree on compensation and resettlement from the project in 2016, and the clean and sustainable growth policy that's government of Laos try to promote nowadays from the 9 national socio-economic development plan. So in terms of the environmental change in Lao PDR, as you may see that more than 13% of family nationwide remain in slash and burn. That means shifting cultivation is very high percent in case of Lao, because Lao people is mainly depend on the natural resource. So in 2021, the Lao PDR losing more than 300,000 hectares of the natural forest to our natural forest burned by the fire during last year. And this year, up until now, the 3,000 hectares of land has burned for a kind of crop, commercial crop, for example, the cassava, sugarcane, and so on, so on. So when people practice about the slash and burn, and also burning the land and forest, we cannot link the national goal of the forest cover, because we set in the last 5 years in 70% by the 2020, but now we link only 62%, which means 8% behind still. And in terms of the wildlife specimen, we as kind of trade by the wildlife specimen, for example, from 115 specimen in 2008 to the 213 of wildlife specimen in 2016. That's been increasing. And you may see that the protected forest was destroyed heavily each year and costing to the water shortage in case of the Namthurn 2. This year they are concerned a lot about the electric production for the next dry season. So when talking about the forced displacement by the natural disaster, the Lao population is flooding in the annual flooding is more than 40,000 people and expected loss damage more than 100 US millions. And climate change is expected to increase the affected people by 4,000 people and damage more than 200 millions. Also, the drought is really continue and as kind of challenge for the Lao people in depending on the natural resource. And by the 2020, they said that according to the World Bank, the population of Laos may flood by more than 80,000 people, which means double from this year. So another dimension is about the climate mitigation technology that's talking about the displacement from the hydropower and development project in Laos. Because in Laos, according to the last census by the researchers and she talking about more than 100 villages or more than one district of the Lao people, PDR, and more 5,000 households have been relocated by the hydropower project. So in case of the Sapien Senam Noi, you may see that the 7,000 people in Atapu was lost their household for the dam flooding. And you may see about the household that require to resettlement from the Vientiane Vang Vieng Expressway and the Lao China Railway as well. So talking about the resettlement recognition and addressing in the Lao law, the main law that's addressing and recognizing the resettlement is the law on resettlement and vacation and decree on compensation and resettlement management in the development project and the electricity law. The law talking, for example, the law on resettlement provide about the two kinds of resettlement. The first one is a general resettlement, which as kind of access to the development. And the second one is specific resettlement. It's look like the term forced resettlement, including the displacement from the development project. And the decree on compensation and resettlement management development program provide three phases of resettlement, start from the preparation, implementation, and report of the resettlement. So in terms of the electricity law, also mentioned about the compensation or resettlement for the affected people in terms of the providing the land, construction land, standard of relocation house, infrastructure facility, and the compensation units must be based on the law and regulation by the standard state from time to time. However, the state did not provide as kind of central unit for compensation. That's why the problem is day from day. And when we're talking about the post-project environmental migration, we have the law that's addressing this issue, start from the law on resettlement article 26 provide about the assistance during the transitional periods, which are talking about the restoration of people livelihoods condition and as kind of necessary equipment for the production. As well, the decree on compensation article 16 state about the project owner as kind of obligation for the project owner that provide the foods, commercial goods, and the relocate affected during the transition no period as well as the compensation for the living. But in the according to the review of two law, the missing part is about the evaluation of livelihoods before and after resettlement. This not provide it in these two law. That's why create the problem up until now. And then the post project environmental migration in case of Lao law is quite how can I say the law is very good in terms of the in paper, but in practice is not the point or another the side of coin. So the law said that the relocation of all the living condition of the resettlement people should be more than or same before they reset from the project. But the livelihoods improving some projects are not realized by the developer or owner of the projects because we call based case by case project or case by case, based on case by case. So in case, for example, the Sapien Senam Noi, up until now, the house is not already built for the affected people. So self-resettlement people also as kind of did not care by the project developer because they as kind of decide to get full compensation and go to the another area, not prepared by the development project. So the last part of my presentation talking about the reflection of law practice of the forced resettlement in Lao PDR, because according to my paper that I collected data from the Nam Ngum one, for example, is built in 1986. Up until now, half of the resettlement people still in the poverty line, which means they cannot graduate from the poverty over the 50-year past. People resettlement from the Nam Ngum 2 in the Mueang Phuong district is where they are as kind of blame. They were blamed to as threaten people to the host village resources because they in that case they resettlement more than 6,000 people into the small district or small village. People from the Nam Ngiap 1 dam relocate themselves nearby the dam and using their own agricultural land before resettlement is belong to them. And the case of the Sapien Senam Noi affected people would like to return to their kind of flat land because it's a very fertile land, and some of them is already go to their place or their household before the flood occur in 2018. I think that is all for my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. ขอบใจเด้อ Dr. Sipa. Very interesting. We learn from his sharing that this context in Laos, especially on from the perspective how on the issue of resettlement, how to get compensation, how to seek regular remedy. And then we see also he shared the disaster related with them. Of course, it also sparked me this question about what happened with the next Luang Prabang Dam, whether this resettlement would be in place before the project started or it will just repeat another dam on the list. Thank you. The last panelist, number 4, Dr. Misan Bisri, joining us from Kobe. Please.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and colleagues. May I check whether my audio is audible and that you can see my screen.
Can you hear us, Dr. Misan?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Maybe can you say something?
Yes,
To check
yes.
the audio.
Hello?
We cannot hear you.
Hello?
Okay, just hold on. We are trying to fix the connection. But thank you for joining us from Kobe. It's right 4 p.m. now in Kobe now. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It's 4 p.m. now.
Yes. Okay, we can hear you, Dr. Misan.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Mr. Chair?
yeah, that's okay, Pak. Yeah, please you
Okay,
can start.
yes. Thank you very much, colleagues. My name is Mizan Bisri, and today I would like to report and also seek input from this important forum. We are currently supporting the Roel Walberg Institute and collaborate in the creation of an research outlook report on climate change, human mobility, and also human rights nexus. So to provide the context, we are currently supporting the Institute to develop a literature review to assess the existing state of knowledge, research gaps, and emerging trends in the field of climate change, human mobility, and also human rights. And the draft of this report has been reported in the Asia Pacific Conference on Climate Change, Human Mobility, and Human Rights Nexus last month in Bangkok as well. And with a focus on Mekong region, hopefully we can provide you some update in this endeavor and also to receive input, especially to highlight the trends and also potentially the gaps on the knowledge generated from Mekong region. And naturally, this will fit into the final report of the study. I think we have seen this in the past that, of course, climate change affects people's life in various ways, including removing the source of livelihood, health, compromising health and safety, and that ultimately can influence the decision to stay or to move to find a better place, a better way of life, and also a more resilient way of living. Sorry, there is some sort of feedback. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, no problem, Dr. Misan.
No problem. Okay. There is no universally agreed definition on climate change induced human mobility or displacement. In fact, there are contested terms and definition, as the gentleman from IOM also mentioned earlier. Despite all this, despite the emerging trend of research and publications on human rights and the implications of human-induced displacement or human mobility, the human rights remain a peripheral concern in the mainstream climate change or disaster displacement discourse. This is, albeit in the context of Asia Pacific, that hundreds of million people in Asia Pacific are actually displaced over the course of 10 years, as the data from IDMC suggests. Naturally, I won't go into detail because the previous panelists also have elaborate how actually the impact of climate change remove or how to say that adverse and also can affect the enjoyment of human rights. So this study has three research objectives. The first one is to analyze the existing state of knowledge, to identify and assess the research gaps and also emerging trends, and lastly, to identify the research outlook and possible research interventions for and by the Asia Pacific Network on disaster displacement, including, of course, its extended network, such as this conference. The approach that we use is literature review, and as we can see, there is an emerging trends in looking into the published literature by fellow researchers and academics to look for case studies, evidence, and I think this is a very critical piece of information and evidence that are required to really come up with an evidence-based, knowledge-informed policy making, both at local, national, and also at a global level. I want to highlight that the value and the main contributions of literature review is to ensure that academics and also development stakeholders have the access to the recent overview of current knowledge, also evaluate the knowledge progress to come up with a proposal, activities, and also intervention that can advance knowledge, especially in areas that are essentially a nexus, a combination of several subject matters or a sphere, such as climate change, human mobility, and human rights. And of course, we can also see that the value is in terms of performance analysis of researcher and development policies, including, for example, as we heard, there is also a baseline and a mapping of the legal instrument for climate change, human mobility. So we can also check to what extent the development of policy also take leverage or use the information from the established science and also knowledge. And of course, I think this process in the context of climate change have been very much important through the close engagement between the UNFCCC process and also the IPCC process. And of course, within that is to ensure that we come up with a clear science mapping that can be used not only by researchers and academics, but also by development stakeholder. So this is the added contribution and also the main contributions that highlight the importance of conducting a systematic literature review for a certain subject matters, especially in the nexus setting, such as the interrelationship between climate change, human mobility, and also human rights. We followed the PRISMA framework or the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, so that we ensure that other past studies and also review on this nexus are incorporated. But at the same time, we leverage and generate new data set that combine new studies that are registered and also indexed in three major database, Scopus, Web of Science, and Directory of Open Access. And here we also use our own engine. It's called a CHARI engine that can harvest all the knowledge in these subject matters across Asia Pacific. In terms of the context analysis, we applied the framework for integrating human rights and gender equality, or FIRE. And I'm sure our RWI colleagues have repeatedly and also frequently informed the forum about this framework. Essentially, this is a framework that developed and also informed through a systematic consolidation of key international legal and operational standards, as well as guidelines relevant to disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and emergency preparedness, as well as response. Especially in the context of the extent of inclusion of rights, protection, and also social inclusion and equality. The development process started from articulating the specific human rights-based approach to DRR and climate change adaptation sphere, based on the various standards from the 20 international guidelines that resulted in a framework containing 4 dimensions of substantive, procedural, governance, and non-discriminations, as well as equality. And then the framework consists of 6 dimensions, as we can see: participation and access to information, non-discrimination, fundamental rights and equality, governance systems and structures, agency and empowerment, social norms, and also context. Due to the limited of time, I will not be able to explain it one by one, but essentially we apply the dimensions of FIRE to map and also to harvest and see the pattern in the current knowledge and published research about climate change, human mobility, and human rights. And by combining the two, we also apply FIRE and we detect any human mobility patterns detected from one in terms of climate change impact, and also action in terms of CCA and also DRM. And also we only limit our review to any research paper that discuss human rights, human mobility, and any climate change mitigation action. So in this context, for instance, when there is a case where a certain community displaced or migrate because of creation of hydropower or because of REDD scheme, reforestation. So those kind of literature are also extracted in this process, and we investigate to what extent the application of fire or to what extent the human rights protection or interventions actually fulfill the 6 dimensions of fire. So in total, after following the PRISMA process, we are focusing ourselves to 188 research publication across Asia Pacific plus A. The A1 is some certain important gray literature come from IOM, IDMC, disaster displacement, that is a follow-up of the Nansen Initiative, and also from the Institute themselves and UNESCAP. But in terms of the case studies, original research article, and also case studies, we focus on this 188 research publication across Asia Pacific. This is just to show the step of the collection of literature and also the keywords that we use, both in the context of climate change adaptation and climate change impact. From here on, I will be a bit quick because I think the gentleman from IOM has discussed and also provide the same content and context. Essentially, we look into the interrelationship between climate change, human mobility, and human rights, and we also consider the 3 types of human mobility. So displacement, migration, and plant relocation. And we add one more, which is immobility. So the state where a certain community wishes to move on because of a project of climate change mitigation or because of climate impact, and their decision is to migrate, but they cannot do so. So we consider all papers that discuss about these 4 types of human mobility. We are aware that there are also certain scholars and groups that did not consider immobility as part of the human mobility itself. I will skip this slide because I think as we discussed, we've discussed about the loss and damage, the importance of Warsaw, how the evolution from Cancun, and of course it's culminated in the recent COP27, the Nansen Initiative that essentially already discussed by our colleague from IOM. We want to highlight that within Asia Pacific, we can see that, of course, the most human mobility are detected in South and Southwest Asia, followed by East and Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, and then the Pacific. Of course, Mekong is part of Southeast Asia. And from our analysis, based on disaster displacement tracking platform, which is looking into the plant relocation, what we are looking here is that in Southeast Asia, most of the plant relocation is in fact triggered by flood and storm. So essentially, it's about response and recovery after a certain climate impact turns into a disaster. And in this context, we have a robust data set in the context of Mekong River countries from Vietnam and also Myanmar. So this is also interesting because I'm very much aware, and I myself responded to the typhoon flooding, to the Atapu flooding, and also there is of course a plant relocation over there. So, but what's important, we need more evidence from the other Mekong River countries. And our analysis also see that among countries in Southeast Asia, in Asia Pacific, Southeast Asia, and also Mekong River countries, we can see that among the 4 human mobility pattern, we can see that the most prevalent one is spatial pattern type A, which is there is a single destination between the displaced community from their place of origin to their place of destination. And this is of course begs question whether this pattern leads to a better human rights protection and also social inclusion and also equality. And we shall later see the evidence from the science activities and research activities. And this graph, what we would like to show is that I think among the Southeast Asian countries, especially in the Mekong River, we can see that there is a demand in the context of Myanmar because the number of internal displacement is quite huge, and also the climate change risk is also high. So we shall also see how actually, let's say, the mechanism in terms of protection of human mobility and human displacement because of the climate change impact in Myanmar can be managed better. This is the overall landscape. So we can see that there is a in general, there is a positive trend increasing evidence and literature in terms of that address climate change, human mobility, and human rights across Asia Pacific. But we shall also see that there is some gaps, especially in the context of this study, is there is a gap of study and evidence from Pacific, but it's
Dr.
quite
Misan,
okay.
sorry, the time is almost up.
Yes,
So maybe we
Thank-
can wrap up and then we can move to Q&A.
thank you,
Please,
sir.
please wrap up here.
Yes, thank you very much. I will go quickly. Of course, we look into what are the patterns and trends that are discussed. In terms of the classification of fire, we can see that most of the evidence that we have is about displacement and also plant relocation. And we can see that more study and evidence to analyze systematically the fulfillment of fundamental rights and equality in any patterns of human mobility in Asia Pacific is urgently needed. This graph also show how the lack of understanding and also evidence that we need to understand the context of human rights protection in the context of climate change mitigation action. I won't go into details, but we can also see the report later. You can see that there is we also try to understand the nodes that connect between various disciplines that important in the context of climate change, human mobility, and human rights study. We can also see that the trajectory of this evidence is of course increased after Paris Agreement. And also in the context of climate change mitigation, we can see that we have more evidence in the context of human mobility and also the human rights in the context of REDD+, and also the displacement because of hydropower creation. And I think this is very much relevant because this is coming from Mekong River countries. And I will go quickly to the conclusion now that at the end of the day, we highlight that we have more research that show the importance and also that highlight the problems in the human rights in the response and recovery stage, so including plant relocation as opposed to climate change mitigation. And because of that, the initial recommendation from this study, and we would like to check in with the colleagues who are expert in the Mekong areas, whether or not the following recommendations is also needed in this context. One is to conduct a more comparative study so that we can find a more generalization and also inform our policy process at regional and global level. It is also critical because this is one of the gaps to highlight how we can utilize indigenous knowledge, customary that can address human mobility and human rights as part of the human mobility activities. To also initiate and promote fire application in the climate change mitigation context. So let's say to ensure that relocation because of hydropower is protecting human rights and so on and so forth. To also pioneer a strategic research collaboration using fire framework-based analysis to generate empirical study across levels. At the global level, this has a potential to guide the development of case catalog or data sets that can be discussed and validated in terms of the fulfillment to the baseline of legal instrument on human mobility and human rights. And at the local level and for plant relocation context, the network can also collaborate with the convener of the disaster displacement and employ fire-based analysis in each caseload of plant relocation. Hopefully this application and this outlook at the end of the day can bring more solid evidence, empirical studies that can inform a better policy making creation in the sphere of climate change, human mobility, and human rights. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and happy to receive comments and feedback from
Yeah,
you.
terima kasih Pak. Thank you very much, Dr. Misan. Very interesting when we see this issue of climate-induced mobility and its relation with human rights. Of course, you presented a lot of scientific analysis, and at the end also, perhaps the question is how could this very rich scholarly scientific data could be translated in the policy at our regional level. We have around 10 minutes. So let me open for the floor for Q&A. Please say your name and whom do you address to your question. Please, yeah, in the corner. One and then two. Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
Your name and then whom to ask.
Yes, my name is Ching Nida. I am from Cambodia, Royal University of Phnom Penh. when I listen to our friend from Laos, the Spa, I find it, yes, there's a lot of the, or say, hydropower development there. And what I like to learn more is related to the place where they live after the displacements, where they live and how they can integrate to the new communities, as I suspect most of them are indigenous communities, and when they move, how they live and how they can integrate it into these communities, and how about the livelihood, how would they live after they being displaced. That is what to our friend from Laos. And this one is to Mizan's. Not normally RED is integrated the local community into their projects for the RED Plus, and you bring the case that RED also bring the displacements. If I'm not wrong, in your slide you say something related to the displacement and associated with RED programs. Can you share me any cases that RED in that case bring the displacements? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nida from Cambodia. One for Dr. Sipa and one from Mizan, for Dr. Mizan. But maybe we wait a bit. The second question. This one first, this lady from the left. Your name and whom you want to ask.
Thank you very much. My name is Rene. I'm from Mevhala University, Chiang Rai. I would like to express a question for Dr. Mizan from Kobe. Your research is very interesting, and I also try to look for kind of meta-analysis data like that. So I just would like to ask, according to your study, when it comes to disaster risk reduction, how to put the safeguard in the place? Is it more into the government or even to the society? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then next question, please. Your name and whom to address.
My name is Wanara from Danju from Cambodia. I interest to Mr. Subhan from Laos. So we see a lot of hydropower dam development and also the compensation mechanism. So my question is, so you have different like bank that support to the different companies support to hydropower dam, and then you mentioned about the compensation and the settlement policy. But the government, they apply only one mechanism, like the national compensation and the settlement policy for all projects, but depend on the guideline and social safeguard standard from the bank that the support to the project. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we let the panelists answer the question first, and then I will open the next session. Please, Dr. Sipa.
Yes, thank you for your question. I would like to clarify about the first question in terms of integration to the, let's say, host community and their livelihoods. It's not easy for the indigenous people to as kind of resettlement from one place to another place, and their livelihood adaptation is quite take a time. So that's why in some project, let's say for example, in case of Nam Ngum 2 in Muang Phượng district, they as kind of provide or support the local people that resettlement for 10 years, which means they assistant for 10 years in terms of adaptation. So in terms of their livelihood, is not as kind of good enough, because the let's say the project provide only the, let's say, the basic infrastructure and the house, but the resettlement people, they want or they would like to get the agricultural land rather than the permanent house or laws or public service. So that's why when they go to the resettlement side, they kind of would like to return to the original place for the as kind of growing the fast crop or the sorted egg of crop that they can survive with. Yes, there is the first question. The second question is about the policy for the compensation and resettlement. It's not as kind of, yes, we have the law, we have the policy, we have the, let's say, the prime minister decree, but the such law is not provide, let's say, the unique price for the compensation. That's why depend on our case by case project. So when we talking about the case by case basis, it depend on the let's say the developer from the Eastern, I mean from the China and from the Vietnam, they as kind of compensate less compared to the compared to the Western investor. So that's why complicated to identify the certify of the affected people. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sipa. Very interesting. The next for Dr. Misan, two questions. One from Remy about the safeguards and government or society, and also the question from our friend also from Cambodia, the first one. So there are two questions. Please, Pak Misan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For the first one, I wish to clarify that the context of the word cloud that I show, the relationship between REDD is in fact closer to the context of the analysis whether or not REDD project across Asia Pacific adhering to human rights, protecting social inclusion of the community in the process. And we only have and the number of research discussing REDD context and also displacement or any form of human mobility is actually fewer than the connection between REDD plus or REDD or REDD plus to human rights and social inclusion. But interestingly, actually, since I think if I understood correctly, the gentleman also asked whether there is an example from Asia Pacific. Actually, one of the case come from Cambodia, and if I heard correctly, the gentleman is from Cambodia, which is about the reforestation of the Prey Long natural forest. My apologies if I don't pronounce it correctly, but in fact, one of the case is from Cambodia in this context. And we find others in terms of climate change mitigation is in Laos in the context of relocation of certain communities from the for the creation of hydropower. And interestingly, this is not an example from Mekong River countries, but in Australia, for instance, in the bid of increasing energy mix and for renewable energy, there is a certain new mineral that is required and harvested in Australia. There is also instances that it creates or it's trigger plant relocation in the bid of creation of clean energy. So the cases are there, and we also discuss it in the report. And this brings me to the second question about the safeguarding, and I think this is also related to what have been discussed or prescribed in the FIRE framework. Of course, the safeguarding itself, although the state as the rights bearer is also very much important, I think now is the time where academics, researcher, and also CSOs can play greater role to ensure that any safeguarding framework can be applied, especially in the context of plant relocation or plant adaptation in the context of relocating certain communities from high-risk area. So that would be my initial response, Mr. Chair, and I hope my transmission is clear.
And the question from Reni, Dr. Misan.
The one on the safeguarding, yes. I think I answered the. Hello.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I answered.
Okay, then I saw some people online also have some question. Maybe let us give one question from the chat box, and then come back to the floor, to make sure that they are entertained, not being ignored. Please, maybe Ms. Thierry, can you read one question from the chat box, and then put the question to whom, addressed to whom? Just select one.
Yeah, so in the chat box is some developers are trying to implement good international environmental and social management measures, but some are not, which have resulted in the significant cumulative impact in the area. Especially what we have seen it is happening along the Mekong River due to the development of many hydropower projects. Do the speakers have any views on how could government prevent the ENS issue to be further worsened on these particular issues, since many hydropower projects are in operational and have been approved by the government?
Thank you for to keep it short. Some developer they apply the standard, some don't. So any panelists you have respond to this? Please, Chris.
No, thanks very much for the question. I mean, it's a bit of a difficult one to answer when a lot of these projects have already been approved and are probably going to be underway. But sort of looking to future development sort of projects, I think this is part of the reason why it's important when looking at risk assessments and so on, to make sure that human mobility dimensions are integrated right from the outset, so that you are taking into account the potential implications on communities. But also to sort of engage with the communities themselves in terms of getting their views on, if relocation is needed, for example, what that would look like, how to manage that effectively in a way that ensures that, rights and interests are protected and so on. And so, I mean, this is sort of a little bit separate from the construction and development project type activities, but a lot of governments are, for example, developing planned relocation guidelines to sort of put a framework around how to manage those sorts of movements, sort of more broadly in the context of climate change, but it could equally be applicable in the context of those sorts of scenarios as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Then let's go back to the floor here in Chulalongkorn. I open for two more people, Dr. Carl and one more. Okay, then Dr. Carl first, please.
Thank you very much, friends. I had a question for Chris. I was quite interested that you're tracking the number of declarations and comments from the government as a kind of measure of how much importance is being given to this issue of climate change and mobility. I was wondering if you had any observations on the content of those declarations, like what the kind of approach is that's being taken by the government. Like, do you see, for example, much emphasis on human rights-based approaches? Is it mainly about keeping people in place, or looking at drivers, or facilitating safe migration? Like, how do you see as the content of these declarations and interventions that are coming from the government? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Chris.
No, thanks for that question. Look, I mean, I think as a general proposition, the focus does seem to be more on addressing drivers, which I guess usually means looking at adaptation and resilience and so on, and to keep people where they are. But a lot of the other sort of beyond the content of it, a lot of what we've been seeing is sort of very much a sort of fleeting reference here and there to the need to take into account the needs of migrants, for example, or to address, migration issues, but without really getting into a lot of the content of what that actually means, and without putting forward any sort of tangible recommendations or ideas on the way forward of how to address it. So I actually think that's one of the biggest gaps in what we're seeing. Although you can sort of point to a lot of documents that address the issue, it's not really addressed in any meaningful way in a lot of cases. So I think that's where, again, we have to sort of work with governments to try and mainstream migration into their national laws and policies, including whether it's national adaptation plan, climate change adaptation measures, and so on. But that has to be part of a broader process as well of just presenting the evidence, getting a conversation going, because as the sort of informal sort of review of the statements sort of suggests, a lot of the governments just aren't talking about it. It's not a priority. So you have to sort of get to that point before you can start to look at beefing up the policy frameworks, I guess.
Thank you, Chris. We have another 4 minutes, but maybe let me ask one question to Dr. Sipa. I would like to ask you about what happened when at the national level that the local people cannot seek legal remedy, because Mr. Bing also said that in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia, there is no setup for the sub-regional. So my question for people who seek for resettlement compensation from the dam projects, when they cannot get any legal remedy at the national level, is there any way to move further up in the regional or international, or even maybe seek mediation with the company who built the project or the developer? Thank you.
I think up until now, there is no mechanism talking about that. So that's why is the compensation and resettlement is up to the National Assembly as the supreme power of the three band state organization in Laos. So that's why the National Assembly, we call the legislative body, is as kind of representative of the government of Laos. So government of the representative of the Lao people. That's why they as kind of take their base to protect the rights and benefit of the people. At the same time, nowadays the government of Laos already established the we call administrative cost, and then I think within next 2 years we will have the administrative act or administrative law that will provide about the as kind of more transparency, more accountability in terms of dealing with the resettlement. That is the hope of the Lao people as well. That's it.
Thank you. Very interesting. Then there is no kind of mechanism yet, right? But I think yes, please. The microphone so people online can listen. Thank you.
Additional to Dr. Sipa Chantawong, now we also try to be transparency. Recently, at the national level, we also organize the scientific research team. Sipa and I also a members. So that why we set up this organization, because we try to represent and for the National Assembly can hear the voice from the grassroots, because we have very transparency law degree everything, but it's under umbrella of the national level. When you implement from south, central, and the north, it might be not appropriate. So that this voice from our representative, it can be here. So that I am very happy. In the past, we don't have this organization. So I believe that this from this team, because we also invite the representative from National Assembly to be our preside. So I hope that it can be a positive direction.
Thank you, sir, for sharing this update. But I think to close, then I think in this region, when we talk about hydropower development, we also need to think about this extra territorial obligation. So when at the national level you cannot seek legal remedy, then there's a way how to facilitate the meeting from the company with the local population that got forced displacement. Thank you very much. This is we are right on time. A bit more of 10 minutes because we started early. I hope everybody enjoyed the panel, the session number 3. And of course, this kind of action, we need to stay in touch, because I think usually after conference, we go back and forget, at least we remember and then stay in touch to keep the information and communication going on. And like what the gentleman from Laos said, like we have the hope. That's what keep us alive. Thank you very much. I return to the organizer.
Thank you very much, friends, for also facilitating the session. So we have a coffee break and then we have a final roundtable. So drink some caffeine so that we have a good, energetic final discussion. We hope that there will be a forward-looking discussion, kind of identifying gaps and thinking about what are the priorities for next steps. So have a 15-minute break and see you shortly. 15 minutes, yes, only.
one. So we continue for the session number 4, also the last session today. So this session, like the round table panel, and the topic of the session is priorities and strategy towards slow onset environmental change, mobility and human rights in Mekong region. My name is Lý Quốc Đặng. I'm researcher in Mekong Delta Development Research Institute, Cần Thơ University. And today I'm very happy to be here for the moderator. Maybe I will invite the panelists to be here, and then we can discuss 3 main questions. The first one, Ajahn Professor Othai Sokhi. Yeah, please come here. Ajahn Othai Sokhi is acting director of Northern Agriculture and Forestry College in Luang Prabang, Laos. His field focus on plant breeding, agronomy, and he also worked like in different projects in Laos, which focus on economy with the SSC, the RIRA project, route, like water management in rapid urbanization in Vientiane, flood and meteoration in Luang Prabang and Savannah Khet provinces of Laos. And also he focused on the hydropower Nam U Wan resettlement. The second panelist, Miss Rani Zuvitasari. Rani is a research associate for the Disaster Resilience and Environmental Sustainability Program at the ASEAN Research Center for International Development, Mae Pham Luang, Chiang Rai, Mae Pham Luang University in Chiang Rai. She is also an active member of Kobe University, UNESCO Chair on Gender Vulnerability and Well-being in Disaster Reproduction Support. Rani field focus on disaster reproduction and resilience, education for sustainable development, sustainability, local knowledge for disaster and climate change. The third panelist may invite Odom Ham from Cambodia. Odom Ham have more 10-year experience to work with the grassroots communities, formal, informal activist group, civil society, and academic to advocate for responsive policy and practices of the water governance aspect in the Mekong region. He also specialized focus on hydropower dam issue in Cambodia, and he had involved with the water and energy related research and policy component, where he's collaborated with the CSO local community across in the region, and even engaged with civil societies and private sector to identify the commonality and strategy in the maximizing opportunity to sustain the social, cultural, and biological richness of the Mekong River and his tributaries. And the last panelist may invite Nguyễn Ngọc Lan, Vietnamese. Ms. Lang currently PhD candidate at National Hanoi University. And from 2020 to now, she is a lecturer at Faculty of Law, Đại Nam University, Vietnam. Ms. Lang has more 10-year experience in the field of training for the legal aid development, Ministry of Justice, and other international NGO in the region. Ms. Lang used to be Deputy Director of the Action Center for Community Development and Country Director of the Mekong region. Sorry. So for our panel, we have 3 questions, and I will raise question by question. So you have 3, because actually at the beginning we expect to have 6 panelists, but now we have only 4 panelists, and then you have more time to reflect your question. I will raise question by question, and then you have 3 to 5 minutes to reflect each question. And we will, after each question, I will raise a second and the third question, and then we have opened the floor for the participant, even offline and online. So the first question, based on your experience and knowledge, what are the key gaps in knowledge or understanding on the issue of slow onset, environmental change, human mobility, migration, and human rights in the Mekong region? So the floor is yours. Ms. Lang, can you? Yeah, because you're here.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody here. First of all, I would like to say thank you so much to open opportunity to bring me today. Yes. Yeah, so I am the first person here to answer the question of the moderators. And I think that one of the key gaps in the understanding about the slow onset and about that, I think that first of all, I think for the people in graduate levels, it's difficult to understanding the meaning of that slow onset. In Vietnam, especially that in Vietnam, we see that we have the 45 ethnic groups, and almost of them, so lack of knowledge, lack of education opportunities. And they don't know anything about the slow onset. They only think that when to say the slow onset on the climate change is only to blood, that the storm come and only that. I think so the key gaps like that, lack of the knowledge about the meaning of that. The second gaps, I thought that for that, it means that not only for the people in the graduate level, but also for the people in the higher level. That's in Vietnam. How to say that, we also have that is several action plan or programs about the climate change, but in each level also have that the different mindset to implementing or to practicing on that. In Vietnam, if I remember correctly, that about the policies in Vietnam, we have not yet have that the definition about the slow onset on that. So it's difficult for the people can understanding, and after that can to be imagine what happens and how to live in with the slow onset. Yeah, that is the one of some of my first answer. And today, that actually for Vietnamese team, we also have some other college that the Mr. Bing here, and he also has a lot of the experience on that, or even that Mr. Here also have a lot of the experience. So if you could guide that both of you could have some others experience, could to provide more and more information for all of the people here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Lang. So we move to the second panelist, Ajahn Otte. Yeah, the same question.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am very happy to share the knowledge and experience with you, because I hope that all of us here have a lot of experiences that to share. In Lao case, I think we can categorize into three levels. Why is the cap is happen? Because as Dr. Sipa he mentioned clearly already, actually how to reduce the cap. We also have the law, the decree, and also the law, the decree that to prevent that to reduce the cap. But I can share with you the implementation process for instance. Like this cap, the government also try to minimize like a compensation law, and in 2018 at that time we applied for the whole nation because the Namthurn 1, Namthurn 2 in the central and the southern part of the Lao. But when the Luang Prabang, my province that I live, actually is more than 10 hydropower dams. For instance, the Nam U, the Mekong tributary, we have seven dams. And we have the Nam Khan, Mekong tributary also, we have 2. And we have the Mekong in Sanyabuli and also in the theory of Luang Prabang. And we have the new one is in the Sokan Sang, also in Luang Prabang. So that all together is more than 11. So, but at the MC, he mentioned that I also recently worked with the resettlement on the Nam U hydropower resettlement about the appreciation of the compensation. But Dr. Sipa, he also mentioned already in 2016, at that time, the compensation law also tried to cover all, but for the implementation process, it's not appropriate because when in the umbrella of the government, so that in the implementation process, we have to study more detail. So that's why the renew one in the number is 365 on 18 August 2021 is the renew one. So that is try to revise what is the witnesses, and after that the compensation according to the inflation, etc., and also the feedback from the national and international, so that those we can integrate it to this the new devices. And also now for the cap, when I conduct the appreciation of the resettlement people, they also try to compare because the Nam U one also in Luang Prabang and Sokan Sang from Thailand also in Luang Prabang, but the compensation process, the cap is there because from the China they just give to the Lao government to negotiate with the company, so that along this process the transition something that we have to investigate. Why the standard, why the everything is evaporation? Okay, do you understand? So that why the Sokan Sang is better, because the Sokan Sang is they go directly to the people. So that is the thing that I also share with Dr. Sipa a while ago, that because of this meeting, the information sharing is very important. He also share his PowerPoint. I also share him the update one that maybe he can put in his PowerPoint. But the cap there because from my working with the community, because the voice so that cannot be here clearly. So that's why our team that set up here, we can be a representative. Yeah. But the intention of the government, I think, is very, very good. But the implementation process sometimes is, I think it's like that.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ao Thái. So can we move to the third panelist?
Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to thank you for having me here. So my name is Renee, I'm from Mephalong University, from the northern part of Thailand, Chiang Rai. So I come here to bring a case study from Chiang Rai, located in Doi Mae Salong area. So I think if you have heard, Doi Mae Salong is one of the mountainous area, upland, forest and farmland, with more than 35,000 inhabitants, with numerous ethnic minorities, and also a Chinese shelter and descendant from Chinese soldier Kuomintang. And after being defeated by the Chinese communist soldier, they migrated a lot to Chiang Rai. So the influx of migration, especially to Doi Mae Salong, is actually it was the first step of decreasing the land availability in Thailand, including the land degradation. So they come to Chiang Rai with the knowledge of production of opium. So following the Second World War, in 1960s, the Thai government start to pay more attention to the presence of ethnic minorities, and also the Chinese settler and descendant. And under the Royal Thai Armed Force, they make the land of the ethnic minority become the reserve area. So concerning the security, border security in the border, and also at that time, the arising of communism in Southeast Asia, and then they try to reduce the opium production and transform that production into the agricultural growth that we nowadays know that Chiang Rai has very good quality of the agricultural production, for example, coffee, tea, and flower, paddies, and etc. So with the absence of technology at that time in 1960s, the ethnic minority and also the Chinese shelter enable to have the self-sufficient food production. But in 1980s started the state-led development initiative. Those agricultural production transformed into the commercialization. So it's starting to make that kind of plantation pattern into the model. So meaning that there must be having a modernity and also the sustainable pattern in that area to force the ethnic minority to follow, I may say, that the scientific knowledge of making the plantation into the model. So by saying that kind of idea, it is the successful initiative. Okay, so but actually it's heritage more into the climate change, so onset disaster, starting with the using more fertility, and then reduce the quality of soil, including imbalance water cycle, and then nowadays even they need to, the ethnic minority need to replace the way they farm in their own space. And then it becomes more severe impact of the landslide nowadays, and also flooding and drought. This year, when I come there and ask people, the drought period, it was longer compared to the last 2-3 years. So they say that they cannot have kind of a good crop plantation result. So I will say that the gap and also the misunderstanding on the climate change is pretty clear, that those ethnic minority are instructed and commanded by the top-down approach, meaning the adaptation there, it's starting from the top-down approach. So it's depend on the top-down approach. And then the second one, when I look at the force of the scientific knowledge among ethnic minority, one thing that I think we already discussed with Dr. Siva about the slash burning practices, it becomes it's actually the ethnic minority or local ecological knowledge for the plantation process. But now if we do that and they do that, it will be blamed and then cause more into the climate change contribution more to climate change severally. And then the third one, when I just asked what is actually climate change, there's just simple as we just think that, okay, this year the crop plantation is decreasing, so meaning that climate change is happen. It's just as simple like that. So when I try to elaborate more the definition of climate change, they couldn't say more that they just only read from the sign of the nature, animal, and then non-human perspective that, okay, the water now is not really clean. The water is like mixed with the mud, so it smells very bad. So I think this climate change is happen, something like that. So it's the, how can I say, the experience from what I see from Doi Ms. Halong perspective. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Rennie. So we move to the phone.
Thank you, Dan. Just to repeat myself, this is Adam from Cambodia. I work for Oxfam. So very good afternoon, everyone. In terms of the knowledge gaps, not very different from Alan and Rennie in terms of the understanding of the grassroots community. Plus, how the scientific study is carried out and shared. Unfortunately, in some contexts, it is very technocratic characteristic in a way. So, you know, the simplify of what we have found in terms of the slow onset is very important, you know. Like you hear very often when you talk about climate change with grassroots community, they may refer to drought and flood, so on and so forth. And that leading into the confrontation, which is unnecessary between the local practitioner, those who are also doing research, but in a more local knowledge way. And then at least in the what Vanara has mentioned this morning, that even the CSO-led assessment on the low flow in the Mekong actually have received a lot of comments, and some of which are very criticized in a way. So I mean, when the knowledge come from, where it depends on where the knowledge come from. So it's the recognition that Carl and then other presenter have pointed out is very important. The recognition, not that we don't have enough understanding, we have, and then we continue to create more knowledge around the issue. But the recognition is very important. And so at some context, at least in the lower Mekong region, Cambodia specifically, unless the research is carried out by the government-related organization, then it is recognized or it has legitimacy to speak the truth. And this is unfortunate from what I have experiencing. So I would park it here and then would continue in the next question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So for our panelists raise, you know, very important point for the first question about key gap of understanding the slow onset concept. And so you mentioned about, okay, maybe the misunderstand or, you know, still do not concern much on the grassroots, and also they less education for understanding this. And although they mentioned also like more centralized from the government that, you know, push for the climate change policy or climate action in the local community. And also Ajahn Others mentioned about compensation process, like implementation process for the dam project. And you know, like, of course, somehow, you know, I mean, now the local knowledge still do not recognize, and they just, you know, bring the academic knowledge, science knowledge to make the policy. That's the gap. So we move to the second question. And based your experience and knowledge, what are the key legal and policy gaps? And how should these be addressed by whom? By whom? You first panelist, Ms. Lang.
Yes, because the first question I spent a little time, so for the second question I will take all. Okay. Okay. Yes, I think I will have some minutes for you. Okay. For me, I think with my experience when I have the over 10 years working closely with the militaries, and when I have when I was the expert for the two main military responsible about the land and about the environment as well. That the MONRE, the Ministry of Environment, and for the MART, that the Ministry of Rural Development. And I also see that some gaps from the legal and policy. That's the first that is what I'm sharing in my experience. Yeah. The first for the legislation plan in general in Vietnam, we also have that take the long time to be adopt or to be vote of any policy or any law, in general in Vietnam, that's for the society is moving and moving day by day. And based on the when the state saw that is a lot of the problem in the society and cannot manage that, and after that, the state will be to thinking about that. Oh, we need to issue a law or policy to manage to control that problem. So it's maybe that it might be to make that the law and the policy always slow rather than for the society movement or society moving. Yeah, that is the first about the legislation plan. And actually for the legislation plan, it's also think that in general in Vietnam that its law formally live about 5 or maximum that 10 years. So with the short time life that the 5 year is not enough time to make sure that the law and policy could to manage or could to control all of the things like that. Yes, that is the first the legislation plan. The second, that's in Vietnam we have a huge the laws and policies. We call that we have the forest, the law yes on that. But most of them face that the overload, a lot of laws and as well as a lot of degree and circular as well. And most of them somehow is to conflict and even that to overload. So it means that even that when we have the policies, we have the law, but for the three gaps behind that belong that is that the implementation. Because we have so many, so for the implementation process, we still have to face a lot of that because each province, each level also have to another mindset, and because actually for the policy and land and law also to make that the general that is something of general regulation on that. But for the practicing, for the implementing, for the implementation process, that we also see for the detail of its problem, for example. But after that, when we see back on the how to solve that, how to use the law, it also face a lot of the problem to implementing that. And just for the implementation process, I could give the one example for the compensation and resettlement. for Vietnam, that in the land law, for example, we also have some specific specific article to mention about the compensation and resettlement. But for the implementing, it also has another, because in Vietnam we also have the two type of the large scale land acquisitions. So if the large scale land acquisition is mean that the state have to right to decide that how much they will pay back for the people. So they are the agency to take all land of the people, and they are the agency to decide that how to compensation and how to resettlement for the people. So for the implementation of that is also to make that the people feel that don't happy. And actually, because in Vietnam, as follow, that's my first answer, that we also have the ethnic minority groups. It's the huge in Vietnam. We people always think that the King people is the main people, but no. If we count all of that ethnic minority, we can see that for the King people, we are the ethnic. Yes, yeah. But for Vietnam, for ethnic minorities, they are quite peace. We see that, yes, and they only think that this is the action plan of the national level. So we follow that, and no, don't say don't make the question again. Yes, and yes, that is some of my answer about the key legal and policy gaps. And I think the second, the third question, that's I mean that is on how to address how should we address and whom. And I think that it's also to come back for the first question. That's if the people in the grassroots level, they understanding the meaning of they have to raise their voice by themselves. So it's also to make the policy maker, to make the state also to recognize, and after that to make to make the legal and policy also have to revise, to follow and to harmonize with that the real situation, and harmonize with that what the people are hoping, something like that. Yeah. And one key point that I think that the involvement of civil society is really important in this process. If we want to change the legal and policy, if we want to resolve the gap of the legal and policy, that we have to participatory of the civil society as well as for the international organization. And we also have to make the alliance, and good to share the all experience from another country together. And based on that, we could see that how and what thing we could adopt and something like that. Yes, that is my answer. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Very insight reflection based on your experience, because your background in law and you have a lot of information on this. So how based on your experience, how do you reflect for this question, Ajahn Othai?
Yeah. Actually, in my first question, I also covered already about the compensation, but I think the policy cap here in the implementation, because the government tried to make the living standard of the farmer better than before. For example, in Nam Thuận, they will compensate until 10 years. But in Nam U and So Kan Sang in Luang Prabang, they also provide some fund for animal raising. But they did not look carefully about they are not homogeneous, right? They are more diversified. So that some since 2017 and until now, some farmer they don't have cow left because. So I would like to say something like this. Okay.
Thank you. Please.
So thank you very much. I just would like to point out one thing, that when we talk about climate change, the vulnerable group is not only comes to the local farmer, even fishermen or etc., but we just neglect little bit about the vulnerable group of the children. I think when I cannot say much about the law actually, but I would like to relate a little bit what actually I have done with my research in education for the climate change. So I totally would like to express that nowadays, in terms of the knowledge production, especially in terms of education, the education system still make the separation of dualism or dichotomy between nature and culture perspective. So when, for example, the law of climate change and also the disaster already bolstered in, especially into international agenda framework of Hyogo framework for action and also Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, and coming on is COP27. So, but in fact, in terms of the children who are actually already vulnerable socially, politically, economically, they don't have kind of special knowledge to combat the climate change, because the current curriculum and also materials still emphasize on rapid onset settings. So because of that, the law also established, I will divide it into 3 levels: macro, meso level, and micro level. So in terms of macro, especially in Thailand case, the Disaster Prevention Mitigation Act established in 2007. Right away, I think after the 2004 tsunami Indian Ocean happened, including Indonesia too. So the act established the same year in 2007. In the macro level, in the meso level, local government and then provincial government, especially in Chiang Rai, established the Disaster Prevention Act in 2015, right away after the 2014 earthquake in Chiang Rai happened. So it's like the impetus of the disaster awareness happened around Thai people. So along with that, in this Act 2015, the government also tried to emphasize more into the climate change master plan. So they start to have that master plan in 2015 under the climate change. And then in the micro level, definitely if in terms of the educational institution, especially in terms of school, one of school in Doi Mesalong Santi Kiri Witayakom, they try to establish disaster school policy, and then to enhance and empower the disaster awareness. Unfortunately, the effort is still rapid onset minded. So the school established more into the evacuation, earthquake drill, and then just small proportion in the effort of the climate change itself. Just like they established trash management and then also the school gardening, that they believe they try to emphasize that kind of important to conserve the nature and also the environment, but it's still, I may say, in the level of the surface adaptation. So it's not really into the detail on deep action or impact more into climate change. So I think also in terms of the local farmer, they I will relate with the compensation thing, something like that. They also get kind of compensation because of the droughts or even a flood happened in Chiang Rai. But the problem is that the compensation is still insufficient, so cannot cover their loss during the period of the flood and drought. So the most important thing is when my team in the rest mentioned that somehow, although the local government already allocate some budget for disaster and also from climate change, sometimes if the budget is not used, so they will, I mean, the local government will not even increase that budget, but the value of the money now is, like, I may say that is also increasing, right? I mean, it's not sufficient enough for them to cover. So there is no significant, do not simultaneously adapt with the situation in the real experience of the local people. So I think the thing that we need to have now is to empower adaptation from bottom up and also top down and also bottom up together, in order to have that kind of good implementation and well implementation together. Like Dr. Lan mentioned that we also need some more proportion to give more space for the local people to be heard. Yeah, so I think in terms of making decision on the policy, it's had better we try to transform more into the grassroots level and then more into the bottom up approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Rennie. How are you, Adam?
Yes, it's my turn. I would separate the question into two parts. First, I would try to point out the legal and political gaps, and then what are how we solve it and by who. I would bring this slow onset topic into where I am from, which is the Mekong River. As you know that Mekong River is a shared river by 5-6 countries, including a little bit Myanmar. But it regulates based on the voluntary basis. We don't have any hard law to govern the development going on in this shared river in the region. So let alone we have the 1995 Mekong Agreement, which is for the riparian country in the lower stretch of the river, including Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand. Upper part, we have Lan Chan Mekong Cooperation, which is sounds to me a lot of development cooperation than how to solve the problem come out of at least those dams they have built. So here you have under the Mekong, the MRC, what we call Mekong River Commission, that Mr. Wu raised this afternoon. You can feel how it looked like. Then, and under this, each development on in the mainstream river, the Mekong mainstream river, have to go through the what they call PNPCA, prior procedure for notification and prior consultation. It takes place 6 months. There are some of which I myself and Vanara have attended. So starting from the Sayaburi Dam, Don Thong Dam, Sanakam, Nao Luang Prabang, and then more to come. At least 9 projects in Laos and 2 in Cambodia. So at least the first few projects we have experienced, after the consultation, nothing happened to stop it, or to at least to properly address it. So we have experience. That's why it's a consultation, but there's no veto power by even each project. All the 4 referring countries have to send notification letter to the regional body, the MRC, and none of the country agree. Some request to not building it, some request to postpone it for more study, but it's still going ahead. Sayaburi, Don Thong is going ahead. We look at the national level, we can see that the EIA is done like a project by project, but instead of looking at the whole basin, what is the cumulative impact from those? And there's been this proposition to adopt this strategic environmental impact assessment in order to understand the whole basin and to create some kind of regulation in order to practice among the country, at least the lower part, but it's not been success. So we go back to the same business as usual. and also the question of, you know, the compensation and resettlement, not only in Laos, but Vietnam and Cambodia. So you're not alone. So then I would look at this, you know, each project on paper, there has to be consultation. But if you look at not only the regional, but even national level, it's done like quite insufficient consultation. Sometimes, you know, a few community rep or NGO join certain consultation process, and then the company can take their part, say, yeah, we have consultation. Myself used to file a complaint with Banarat all the way to Kuala Lumpur, back at the Don Sahong Dam. So we have this kind of active Malaysian Human Rights Commission. So the first transboundary complaint, we issue the mega first. So yeah, first like they open, listen, and they try to reach out to the company for more consultation, and then the company respond that if you talk about consultation, you have to look at the PNPCA through the 1995 agreement. So so one, what do you say? And then we kind of end the process there, because I say they have taken the part already when during this kind of non-binding regional mechanism. It's not strong, but sometimes it is a proxy if you're not careful, especially on the civil society. Yeah. And from there, and then we touching upon the solution. So how can we address this issue? Not from my perspective, but as an Oxfam representative, we have this kind of inclusive. We can see that, you know, if you want to improve the decision, you have to involve more people, as many, not only academic, not only government, but also the civil society, grassroots people, which inclusive to different groups like indigenous people, women, people with disability, and LGBT, so on and so forth. So it sounds hard, right? That's why we've been here for so long. Okay. So at the same time, we have to kind of in terms of who, I think I would echo this idea of decentralized or people-centric approach. This is very important, because you cannot just have the beautiful law and made by this high-level people, but at ground level they don't really have some idea about what is climate change. You have to reach out to them and then, you know, see what they understand or the existing capacity of their own knowledge. You know, we have this kind of effective, like in Laos, you have the South Ban research, you have Thai Ban research, Cambodia, we have Salapum research. Then this kind of community-led, of course, there are gaps, there are limitations, but it's led by people. Then it answering to you or my own question this morning, how local people respond or understand things. So it have to build up from there, and it takes times. So that for now, it's I would wait for the next question.
Yeah, thank you, our panelists. So the key point is like the less policy approach from bottom that, you know, relate to the compensation to the grassroots level, the affected communities. And the third question, also the last question, and then we have the question later. So based on your experience, what are the most important points of action in the region and also in your countries in the short and long term? Ms. Lang?
Oh, it is interesting today. The lady, we have the two ladies here. So yeah, but it's me that I'm always to be the first. Yes, the most important point of action in my country is it is really difficult to answer this point, actually, because I am not the person to have the right to have the decision making right to decide that what the Vietnam should do and need to do. But for my experience, I thought that's for the most important points of action that Vietnam should do, not only in the short term, but also in the long term. This means that the first that should to in the short term now, I think that need to raising awareness for the people in graduate level, understanding the whole the meaning and the whole knowledge about the climate change, as well as about the impact of the climate change affected to their life. And the second point that should to continue to revise the policy and law to make that the harmonize with the international standards that the Vietnam have to adopt or have to participate, especially that, for example, in the some international conventions. The third that Vietnam should have to design the scenario, yes, for Vietnam in the long term, because the climate change is changing day by day, and we are now living with the climate change. Yeah, how to survive on that, and how to make the life of the people, especially in the graduate level sustainability in this context, when all of the country also do developing, and to make you see that when each country is the developed, it means also to affect also to affect for the climate change, and how we can live in this situation. So we also have a need to make the scenario for that. That is yes, that is the sum in the national level to do. But I'm not sure that the Vietnam could do in the near future, because actually it's also based on the capacities from all of the resource that we have already, and to make the scenario is also to take time and also to spend a lot of the resources, and we do, yeah. But I think that is my suggestion for that. For the Mekong regions, I really love that the some of our presenter in this morning and half of the this afternoon, when you are sharing about the some study in the not only one country but also for some of the Mekong River, the Mekong countries. And I think for the Mekong regions, that the Mekong region could do some that to give more evidence, or yes, about the impact of the climate change, and also should to make that some solution for that, for the countries in the Mekong region. The second thing, I think that all of the ASEAN countries, and especially that for the Mekong River, for the Mekong region countries, should sitting together and actually even now we have a lot of the forum, even that the platform, but how to do the platform is useful for the countries. So we also have to design, and we also have to make the mechanism to sharing information. We have to commitment just together that all of our information when we sharing is only only for the main purpose, that to make our life is better than in the worst situation like this. Yeah. Yes, and I think the seminar like this is really good. Yes, that opportunity for us who sharing. That's what we what our experience on this topic, and based on that we could see, and actually, for example, even me, when I listen to all of your presentation, I will so to adopt something for my work and as well as for my task when I am now still to be the consultant and advisor for the ministries. Yeah, so I think that all of the we should to organize or should to set up the long term the platform and to make that to engage that more and more other organizations in the Mekong countries could to provide more and more the experience on that. And the first I think all of us could do like the something like to make the ASEAN regulation like what you are sharing. That's actually now I am also know that for the secretary board of the ASEAN, they also have the one big project for the all of the country in ASEAN that the the regulation and the agricultural investment that is the big project for the ASEAN secretary board do. Actually, I know because now I am also the person to make the analyze of the 10 topics in the country related to responsibility in agricultural investment. Yeah. So I think that if we also have to do something like that, and we promote or advocate for the ASEAN to make that the ASEAN to make the common ASEAN regulation on that, so all of the countries in the ASEAN in the ASEAN in general or in the Mekong region, yes, could to follow on that regulation. So it's also to make that our work or make that our life or people livelihood is also to better than to make the sustainability in this situation or something or we could see that how to ASEAN could solve to make the development in the climate change situation like this. Yeah, that is the my thinking, and I'm sorry because that the first question, this is only that my early idea. Be honest that I only prepare for the two first question. For the first question, I thought it's really difficult to answer the first question because it also is not for me. I am only the one person, and we have the small lady, and with that the short experience on that. But to stay here, to sitting here with the surround all of the professional or all of the people who have the strong experience, and I think that you engage me. So yeah, so I'm willing to share that what I'm thinking. So thank you once again. Thank you very much for organize a team to organize this seminar, and I also hope that in the future that if I really hope that I could have opportunity to participate and could willing sharing that's what my experience on this topic for you all if if we have the opportunity. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank Ms. Lang for the rest experience for the recommendation for maybe our future, and maybe we can discuss more after the panel. So turn to Ajahn Othai.
Okay, I would like to talk about my country case, but I would say less about the hydropower because we talk a lot already. Because when we mention about the climate change, mobility and migration, I think it's involved with many players. So that for our case, especially for my duties, that we belong to the Ministry of Agriculture and Forest. Our government always try to focus on the green development, because this morning when Dr. Sipa Chantawong, he mentioned only, we try to increase the forest cover from 2016, 15 to 2020 will be up to 70%, but up to now, our goal up to 68%. But if we include the rubber plantation, thick plantation, it might be reached our goal already. So that this our government ambition, I think, is very good to the direction how to reduce and to mitigate the climate change and mitigation, and after that, by the end, why we have the migration, so that from our education institutes, we also try to educate the young generation, especially start in the previous we don't have the involvement of the young kid and the people and the farmer participate and involve, such as like garbage segregation, environmental conservation, and also like organic farm or organic production. That actually is the short term, but I think it's will lead to how to achieve our goal in the future. But for the long term, I think our government also not neglect, because they also try to keep how to make the green production and green development, especially in Luang Prabang. Even we have more hydropower because our topography and we are landlocked. So that how can we increase our GDP? So that in this case we have to think about the topography context. So that because we are landlocked, if we want to bring our from the LDC, least development country, so that if we do not do nothing, so that how come? So that is action we do, and after that we also try to learn from the past, so that if we have something that need to improve, like compensation from 2018, and after that until 2021, we also upgrade something that we see that is not improper. Yeah, and of course the migration here, I think the causes is the main cause, I think, from my opinion, is from the development. For instance, in my college now, the number of the students come to study in agriculture, because my agriculture college is really less, but they prefer to go to Thailand, to Korea, to Saudi, and to Japan, and to Israel, because maybe this the net return and the income is might be safety or might be faster. So that anyhow we also teach them that how to make your long-term career more sustainable, because if you use your labor when you still young, but when you become old, so that we also educate them, so that is our long term, that we educate our young generation. So of course our government also not neglect about the clean development and sustainable development. So I think that is all.
Yeah, thank you, Ajahn Mothai. So we turn to Rennie.
So thank you very much. I will recall a little bit about my research in the school, especially. So when I went there during the drought season, so my key informant mentioned that, okay, so the current existing disaster education is still in rapid onset setting. And then they mentioned that disaster education must go beyond on rapid setting onset, and then must go beyond on the cultivating of the basic knowledge on the rapid onset. And then when they ask, we actually have several network with the government and NGO, but I think that school mentioned that I think the most important thing is to have real network with the role of higher education, because they mentioned that the thing that nowadays we understand the slow onset disaster becomes reality. So they mentioned just like this. Okay, I have very funny story. This teacher said like this. When we don't have the water, so they cannot use the toilet. So some of the students will go back, return to home, just only to use the toilet. Some of the students actually never return to the class. So they say that, actually that's really challenge of teaching and learning activities. So because the student cannot get good quality of education, even that student cannot get today material. And then they mentioned also, yeah, we also need to pay attention in this kind of situation, because the girl student who got period cannot get very good sanitation. So I think it's really urgent for us to have the higher education for the knowledge production. So I think with this kind of idea, in the short term, when I look at them, they the teacher especially, they already try to adapt themselves with the breaking dualism, bringing back the local ecological knowledge into their teaching and learning activity by using the storytelling. They say that, okay, sometimes I also try to give kind of the how can I say, reading and also comprehension from the weather and then animal sign, just in order to make them to anticipate today happening. And also they try to bring that kind of how can I say, the first conservation of the environment into the school activity, like the school gardening, that they mentioned that, oh, if you conserve this one, you can save your food production, something like that. But when we recall, they need the presence of higher education, that I remember the actor-network theory from Bruno Latour mentioned that we are human actant. We cannot neglect the knowledge production as non-human actant. So by saying that, we also cannot neglect the paradigm shift, the advocate by Thomas Kuhn, to change from rapid onset to slow onset. So it's time for us to think, how can we deliver the understanding manifestation of knowledge into young children, especially in order to make them to be a climate resilient community. And the most important thing that we neglect nowadays, that I already mentioned, we still separate nature and culture perspective. We have to make contextual truths according to balancing between the scientific knowledge that exists nowadays, and then without neglecting the local ecological knowledge, with our goal of 21st century skill, or even maybe sustainable development and sustainability perspective, in order to make the contextual truth. Because I understand Bruno Latour say that the small narrative is actually the truth of the multi-layer, not universal truth, but the truth among the local people, that we need to catch up in order to empower them to be resilient. So I think if we look at the short term, I may say that the local people in rural area, they already understand how to adapt, especially when we come there. Okay, this season they will not crop this one, but they will crop another plantation. They already understand that kind of thing. But the most urgent thing is that we need to urge the mitigation level, especially to change their paradigm shift from rapid onset to slow onset, tend to that. And then we are like academician, higher education, academia, everyone work together in order to produce the knowledge that contextually relevant with nowadays situation. And the most important thing, we need to have the gender sensitive policy and strategies. And also, like you mentioned, inclusive policy and strategies in order to make us more resilient. I think, thank you very much. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. So, Aldon, can you reflect very fast for the question?
So after this done, right? Okay. So I will take an hour. So, okay. Well, in terms of a point of action, out of many things that have been done and on the plan, so I would say two main things. One is the co-production of knowledge, and the other thing is the raising awareness. So what it mean by co-producing the knowledge, because realizing the importance of the scientific knowledge and the local knowledge. So Oxfam is then in between that. So we have to be inclusive to both. Sometimes we are partnering with the government institute. For example, in Cambodia, we have this Inland Fishery Institute of the Ministry of Agriculture and stuff. Then we work with them, or sometimes we hire them, or we support them, I would say, to do research. Then we use that research to fit the knowledge of on the ground. And the other time, we also collaborate with our local CSO partner in different countries in the Lower Mekong. This research led by the community. So we know that it takes time, but we have to at least for the time being, we are working with them, and hopefully in the long term, over time they can be independent. They can take the lead on whatever that is they need to do for their own sake. At the same time, we also looking into the alternative, because, for example, YDB Dam, they want electricity. Then we put the question is are there any other source of electricity that we can tap into? For example, now, solar, wind, and then sort of biomass that are having both technology and economically viable in the region as well. So we also collaborate with other INGO or local and also academic to work on that. We have this while country and the world are talking about energy transition, we are also insert just energy transition, which refer back to the inclusion. We have this inclusion project, which is more on working with everybody. So how we can make it just while you are doing a transition, not just saying hydropower is a solution for climate change by reducing the greenhouse gas emission, but we have to be critical of that, what's happening on the ground, to the river, to the displaced people, because we have that knowledge that the fact that happened to the community on the ground. So that also other part we are doing in terms of co-production, and also we raise awareness based on that fact or scientific result to those who need to know. I think that is about it. Thank you. It's not 1 hour. Thank you.
Yeah, thank Aldon, and thanks for our panelists. You gave a lot of information, discussion based on your experiences, and I think our participants from offline and also online will have some question. Now, we have 10-15 minutes for that, and 10 to 15 minutes. Depend on the question from the participant. Any have question for our panelists? Do you want to ask maybe, okay, Dr. Sifa?
Yes, thank you. I would like to learn more from the lately about the local people in dimension law adapt to climate change in there. Because you mentioned about the from the previous one, from the let's say from the Kuomintang until now, how they adapt to the climate change in that area.
Thank you very much. So far their adaptation is into how they crop the plantation according to the season. So I think they try to adapt with kind of their local knowledge that actually they already stopped some kind of practices like slash and burning practices in that area. But again, I think if we can see somehow they, like I already discussed with some of panelists when we had lunch, some of the people sometimes they can feel that, oh, we just know that climate change is only reflect our crop production, that's all. And then with that clean water or something like that. So no more adaptation except they focus on how they can get more the crop and food production. But I think in the future, actually, I will hopefully Chula, maybe Achan Kal can have that kind of things, because actually I will have further research on the slash and burning practices in the area of Yangken, but not Toi Me Salong. It's like Chiang Kong going there. So is the Yao or Hmong minority, and then I will try to elaborate the lesson learned from Japan in Itsukimura, Kumamoto Prefecture. They currently bring back the practice of slash and burn, coming back. They apply again, so they claim that that activity is actually very good for the soil fertilizer, and then they believe that they say that they do that practice without contributing more into the climate change. So I think if in the future we could meet again, I think I will share my research. So next year, I think I will go to Kumamoto to do that research. So we can see how local people, especially in agricultural field, can adapt with combining the scientific knowledge and then the local ecological knowledge. Thank you.
Okay. Question?
Okay, my name is Claire. I'm a graduate student here at Chula. And I think the panel did a great job so far of talking about like how knowledge is produced and how it's disseminated and how that ultimately like creates the policies around climate change, mobility, and human rights. And I guess my question then is, we've talked about like legitimacy then. How can we better legitimize the voices that are on the ground and the voices that necessarily haven't been heard in Southeast Asia, especially considering the top-down approaches and maybe more authoritarian processes of managing natural resources? Thank you.
So the question for our panelists, right? Hold up first. Okay, maybe slide.
It's me that I after my answer this question, so the time will be up. Thank you for your interesting question, Das. Your question is also to make that the similar with so many people when they also to ask me that. We also see that for the ASEAN countries, or most thing that we also say that everything is top down. So how to engage, how to make that raise the voice of the communities, how to let them can raise their voice. That so I mean that now I have opportunity to share another my background on that. the first thing, even in Vietnam now, the voice of the grassroots level is that the different that the 5 years ago. That's we organize a lot of the training or just for graduate level in the something like the human rights. That's we train for the people in graduate levels what their right. Yeah, they have to understanding that. So based on that, yes, and beside of that, we so to day by day to working with them to make that the to engage and to support them to how to say that develop their capacity day by day. Yes, we also have some group to working closely with the that we find that the champion group in the graduate level. Yes, and we also to do something like that the TOT training. So the champion group, they are some key person in the communities that the almost of the people believe them. Yeah, so we engage them that first. After that, to do the way we do that. And the second thing that when we open a slot of the seminar or the policy dialogue, and we invite the delegate from the ministries from the state to come there to go there, and we also to provide the champion in the grassroots level. They come and they tell their story about that, and we also to working. We are like the connection point to connect the policymaker, the state, with the people in the grassroots level together. We only in standing in the middle to just to do that, and we also to make the clear process that we are not do for the government, and we also not do for the grassroots level. Yeah, but we also see that we only want to collaborate with both of them. Yeah, and even for the society like that, society also understanding that what they said is mean that express their hope and their mission or something like this. Yeah, the government agency, they more and more now, they more and more opener rather than 5 years ago, right? Yeah, and we try to engage them to be the partner when we implementing the activities or plan or some program, something like that. So they are not our enemy. They are to be the college. Yeah, they are our college that and collaborate. And we also to see together that what is the gap, and we also to raise that how to solve. So what you need from us, yeah, something like this, yeah. And now, yeah, that is that is my experience and my real work to sharing to you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Adam. You have
I have something to share with you because from my perspective, from my opinion, I think from the top down, it's not always not good, because I think it's the guidance. But when we implement, I think it's art and science. We have to look at the context of those community and of the country. For instance, when she mentioned about the slash and burn, it can be worked in Japan, but in Laos, it's not. So that when we mention about the art and earn, art and science, it's about how to do carefully implement, especially our intention that to engage more with the bottom up, with the real condition of the community that they have the program. So that how to make it, I think, to implement, but we think about it to art, science.
Adam.
Okay, thank Claire for your question. Well, one of the strategy that I have seen even before I joined Oxfam, for your information, I just joined Oxfam for 7 weeks. So most of the information come from my work previously. So well, from my reading at least. So we have this engagement strategy, which is, as we are mostly talk about inclusiveness, and then we have been working very long time with local community and CSO, and that now it's in the time for the engagement with the private sector and also the government, because as you say, they're not enemy all the time. At least one of the example we have done recently is we engaging with this intergovernmental institution, the MRC. We have this MRC CSO. It is an informal relationship, and they want to formalize it, but we have to say, let's talk about that, because we also have something to say, right? How to run this relationship. At least we have the opportunity to share information on certain project that they got notified by developer or country, a representative country. And also we also have the chance to share what is happening on the ground, the perspective on the ground as well. And yeah, moving forward, we were trying to engage there. Even there are existing mechanism, like I just mentioned, that sometimes there is a transboundary complaint mechanism that is could be applied because of the nature of the home country of the projects. Also, there are platforms that we have to take into consideration if we can exercise it, or we can utilize it by in a way that more inclusive and constructive. And then we you know, consultation is very important. We see the problem is of a consultation and then representation. So we have to be mindful by ourselves. When I say we, is more on the civil society side, that the way we engage with local community, we really have to be very mindful as well when we speak on behalf of them. And then gradually they have to be there by themselves. Yeah, and that our strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldo.
So I will add more little bit about that. So I think in my standing point is that since university is the knowledge production, we come out with the producing and develop the skills for the local people. So we are not going to against each other with other stakeholder, but the most important thing that we have to work is that doing research, it doesn't mean it just publish paper, but we also try to give the skill for the local people. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think like we have.
Excuse me, one again, because according to Dr. Sipa, and asking my friend here about how to cope with the climate change in your research side, right? Because my friend is from plant breeding and agronomy, so I would like to share with you, because the cropping calendar and also intercropping, it can be another option to mitigate, because to reduce the risks, the losses, and also adapt to the climate change. Yeah. And also, my friend, she also mentioned that the university is the knowledge production, but of course, sometimes we have to think about not only the research, but sometimes extension. Extension is how to apply, because when we do here, but the consumer is the most important. So I think sometimes the researcher that I think that is very useful, but when implement and when the farmer implement is not suitable, we have to rethinking, especially when we think about the soil erosion along the hillside, especially for the pineapple plantation. We do like this, but the farmer, they will not do the weeding along the parallel. They will do the how to say, to the direction to the hill, so that it's very nice in the table, but when implementation, the farmer will go to the top of the mountain, so that the soil erosion, that we make a contour here to protect the soil, but sometimes that we have to revise. Right? Okay, that's all.
Yeah, thank you, panelists. I don't think we have time to for more questions, because now 4:30, and but I would like to because we live in I mean, in same region but different country, and each of us have different institution. Of course, like Vietnam, Laos, Thai, Cambodia, and one more thing I would like to reflect and also to conclude is that maybe because at the role as like you are a lawyer, like professor, researcher, and activist, and then maybe our role like at a central, and maybe in our society, in our community, the local people are like at grassroots level, and also the government, they don't speak the same languages. So our role, maybe we have to bring the same language from the grassroots level to the government, and also bring the language from the government to the local people in order that we can change something, like make the effective policy in order that the approaches from the top down and bottom can combine. So thank you, and we close the panel. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you very much. I hope we can have a couple more minutes just to wrap up, and then we will conclude the seminar. So I will just mention a few words on behalf of the organizers, just to try and, actually, I can't really pull it together, to be honest. But so, I think just to try and give a little bit of a closure though, we've been exploring the connections between climate change, mobility, and human rights overall. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I've learned a lot over the day, right? Especially because we've really tried to bring together a wide range of perspectives. And so from the different presentations and the discussion that we've heard about global processes like COP27, the Sendai framework, and so on. We've heard how they've been translated or connected to regional and national policy to a degree, but also identified a lot of gaps that exist in those connections. And perhaps also, from my perspective, an important question of to what extent is it important that they're connected versus things actually coming from the region itself instead. We've heard from researchers about their own work, and also we've heard some mapping of the research to date as well. We've heard about civil society knowledge and experience, and then also the work of, or the important work of journalists narrating what's happening in the region, which actually seems to be quite at the forefront of understanding the issues in what we've been discussing today. So personally, what I was hoping to gain from this meeting coming together was to try and get some form of collective knowledge or collective insight. Because as we've heard quite regularly through the day, like these things are really complex. And so it seems more than any one individual or any one perspective could really understand. So I think that what that means also, and it's really reflected in this final panel, is it also means like assembling different types of knowledge together in order to understand the complexity. So I mean, obviously we're at the university, so we've heard from some academics and some people that are quite close to the policy making, but it kind of reminded me, I wrote a book a couple of years ago with some colleagues about nexus thinking, and the word nexus has come up a few times. And when we were kind of presenting that book to people that work in transdisciplinary approaches, they pointed out that experts tend to think in silos, whereas people in an everyday sense don't make those silos in the same way. So when I was sort of listening to the panel and the argument of the need to kind of come bottom up, actually there's a really strong argument for that, like in terms of the knowledge itself, because the kind of the separation of the different issues is largely occurring at the expert levels, whereas the combined experience is actually where it's all coming together. So we've had different types of knowledge, academic and policy, but also local knowledge, practical knowledge, and also very importantly, political knowledge as well, like how to navigate the political systems in order to have more recognition of these issues. And I think also what I was personally hoping was also to really embed this discussion within the experience in the region. And I feel like that's also come across quite strongly. And also hopefully just that some of us could get to know each other and learn from each other. So it's really good both that many have joined in person and others have joined online as well. Just a couple of comments on the trends. I think what we've heard is that this is a really important issue for Southeast Asia, and that slowly recognition is growing, but there also needs to be more recognition. But I think Rennie actually pointed it out really importantly, that it's not just recognition is growing, the reality is growing. So it's not something that we're talking about abstractly in this meeting room, but it's something that is being experienced more and more every day by many people across the region. So in that sense, it leads me to two sort of final points. One is to recognize that it is a governance issue, but it's also a climate justice issue as well. It's a social justice issue. That a lot of the experiences that are happening, and I think this came across in the second panel especially, a lot of the things that are happening on the ground are beyond the people that experience these issues are not the ones that are responsible for the origin of them. And so that does make it a justice issue. So I think that's really important not to forget. The other thing is, I think that it's really important that we work in networks that are across levels and also across different types of actors. And I think that's been discussed quite a lot today as well. But again, with the strong recommendations that have come from the final panel about co-produced knowledge, bottom-up knowledge, I think that's kind of the final point I'd want to make, that it's especially important that many of the actors or the networks that we discussed are connecting to communities, families, and individuals who are experiencing these changes, and most importantly, are accountable to them. I think that's kind of the justice part as well, that a lot of the discussions that are happening in different arenas around the region and at the global level need to connect and be accountable to what's actually happening on the ground, to the people on the ground that experience these things. So that's kind of an ethics of the research or an ethics of the work that's being done. So those are the kind of the things that I personally take away from the meeting. I'm sure that everybody else has their own insights to share as well. So I think I must close the meeting by saying thank you to lots of different people. First of all, thanks to all the speakers and the moderators for actually enlivening the whole meeting. I mean, that you can't have a meeting without people sharing their knowledge. So, and thanks to the speakers, moderators, and everybody who's joined the meeting to share their ideas. I'd like also then to thank my colleagues and the co-organizers. So first with the Raoul Wallenberg Institute, Danang and Lena have made this happen from the RWI side. And then the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights with Pierre and Taisuke. They've also actually been engaged in this for a long time. And I hope that we can continue to collaborate with them. And then for the CSDS team side, my colleagues Orapan and Thierry have worked incredibly hard to bring us all together. So I really appreciate that. And then also the team down here. So with Sue, Clara, and Aran, and Kun A, who've also kept things smoothly flowing through the day. So thank you so much. So I say thank you to all of you. And with that, there's a final announcement, which is if anybody in the room would like to join us for dinner this evening, please join us for dinner. It's maybe a little bit early at the moment, so our plan is to walk from the faculty to a nearby park, the Centenary Park, which actually does have a kind of climate change function in the sense that it's supposed to be a sponge park to accommodate like floodwater. So we'll walk slowly through the campus, hoping it doesn't rain, and then see the park, and then walk to a restaurant nearby. So anybody who would like to join, you're very welcome to join us. And with that, we'll close the meeting. And yeah, thank you again for joining today. I think from now onwards, we'll start walking out now. Yeah, we can leave now. Yes.